And the issue is African-American history at the 21st century. Now, Dr. Baldwin, during this last segment, let's see if we can give you free rein in a real sense to sort of pull us in during this last 10 minutes in reference to some of the things that we ought to know about what we're talking about.
Yes, when we talk about the 21st century, we have to take into account the kind of controversy surrounding this celebration of Black History Month. There are many in our society, primarily in the white community, who feel that Black history is a part of American history. So why designate a month each year, February in this case, to the special celebration of a particular people? But you know, Black history has been neglected as a part of American history. Certainly it's a part of American history, but it's a neglected part of American history.
Almost an unknown part of it until Carter G. Woodson.
Largely unknown, not only, even among African Americans, and certainly among white Americans and other Americans of other ethnic backgrounds. Now, Carter Woodson himself envisioned a time, or he hoped for a time, when Black History Month celebrations wouldn't be necessary. He said that. But he said, given the view that most Americans have of African Americans, stereotypical images of Black Americans, distorted views of their roles in American history and American culture and the shaping of American civilization, given that, we need Black History Month celebrations. Or as Carter Woodson would say, Negro History Week celebrations. So Woodson himself hoped for a time when that would not be needed, but he felt that that would only come when blacks had full human rights in America, and then we could celebrate American history as opposed to focusing specifically on the history of African American people during Negro History Month. Hopefully we get to that point, but we are not yet there. Now, the other point I would like to make has to do with where we go from here in terms of our celebration of Black History Month. We know that it has been, Black history has been integrated into the classroom experiences of students and from the kindergarten level on up to college, and we know that it is a part of the educational curricula in many of our colleges and universities and divinity schools and seminaries. But where we go from here, I think, is that we need to make it a part also of our family structure. In the early days when Woodson was coming up with this idea for Negro History Week, Black history was taught in the context of family life. Around the dinner table, kids learned about Black history. We need to go back to that because I think the family needs to be regarded as an educational agency. So we need to integrate Black history into our family life and also into our religious institutions, our churches, our mosques, so that our young people will understand what happened in the time of Woodson, for an example, in the 1920s. What happened with the Civil Rights Movement? What is happening today in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and our efforts to advance Black rights, Black freedom to another level.
Just a wider range of knowledge and information about the African experience.
Exactly.
Because the African American experience has been different from any other experience in America.
Exactly. It is a unique experience, and I think Carter Woodson recognized that, and this is why he started Negro History Week, and this is why we celebrate Black History Month today. We're talking about a unique experience of people who have experienced oppression, in a unique way, and are people who are struggling for freedom in a unique way. And that continues, of course, in the 21st century.
And of course, if you took that particular aspect out of American history, you would really have a different American history. What would American history be without the existence of the African in America, the African experience in America? There would have been no slavery. That would be, and some of the great issues that we're talking about today, you know, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment.
Blacks have been a part of every major turning point in American history. We've contributed so much to the artistic life of the nation, to the agricultural life of the nation, to the spiritual life of the nation. And I think Carter G. Woodson was right. Celebrating black history, affirming black history, accepting black history is essential not only to the spiritual, psychological, political survival of black people, it's essential to the spiritual, the psychological, and the intellectual survival of the nation, I think.
And so on the at the end of this century, I think we can still hope for there being some element dealing with the African American experience, because this is an experience that is going to continue. No matter how integrated the African become within American society, there will always be that aspect that of his story that has to be told.
Exactly, and we should not treat it as a footnote to American history. And that's been the problem, I think, with so much of our history of America, is that blacks are treated as a footnote, that you get distorted and stereotypical images of blacks in that history. And I think we need to get beyond that. And once we get beyond that, then we can celebrate American
history. We could have an American history department instead of an African American history department, and et cetera. But Dr. Baldwin, I believe that as a representative in a real sense of one scholarly aspect of the African American experience, because in a real sense, you really follow Carter G. Woodson and W.E.B. Du Bois and others in terms of the kind of work that you're doing and the kind of writing that you're doing. And I think that as we were inspired by the African slave trade or by Woodson's book, The Education of the Negro, and et cetera, a large number of other young individuals that are coming along today, when they look at Martin Luther King, are inspired by some of the things that you've said and some of the things that you've written.
And so, also you.
And I think that we've all had some hand in helping to broaden the whole understanding of what the African American experience has been
all about. Exactly. And I think you're quite right at that. You, myself, so many others who are making these great contributions today to the understanding of black history and black culture. We are all a part of the legacy of Carter G. Woodson and W.E.B. Du Bois.
That's right.
We're standing on their shoulders. We're advancing the kind of scholarship that they were interested in pursuing and getting across not only to the nation but to the world.
What would they have done and what achievements would they have made had they had at their disposal the tools that we have to work with today?
I wouldn't venture to make an assessment of that. I think if they had exposure to the kind of resources that we have today, their contributions would have been endless.
They would have.
Would have been endless. But we have to look to them as pioneers.
Pioneers, that's right.
And look at ourselves as picking up the torch and carrying it forward.
And I'm glad to say that I know Dr. Lewis Baldwin.
You know, I'm glad to say that I know Dr.
tell people all the time,
Haney.
you know, that I know Dr. Baldwin. You know, he's written all those books about the African experience that has had.
I know Dr. James Haney.
I knew you before your work before I knew you. And so, Dr. Baldwin, and I say that you've done so much in terms of contributing to this particular show, and I think I've said it on many occasions. It goes back for the last 25 or 30 years. You've contributed to this show as much as you've contributed to the writing of the books, because most of the time when you write the book, we find out about it on this show, even though you're circulated worldwide in a real sense.
Thank you so much.
It gives us sort of a special opportunity and a special privilege.
And what you're doing is equally important.
Tie into all of these things. And so I want to thank you for coming by and sharing this information with our audience this morning, because I know that it's very, very important that we be able to do so. And I know that my granddaughter has been encouraged and influenced by, she knows Dr. Lewis Baldwin, Dr. Allen, and all the rest of those folks. And I want to thank you. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you, and good morning.